Good afternoon, dear participants. Добрый день. My name is Svetlana Belarus, and I'm a General Secretary of CCILR, Chamber of Commerce and Industry Luso-Russian. CCILR objective is to promote business cooperation between Russian-speaking and Portuguese-speaking companies. Considering recent statistics, the trade balance between Portugal and Russia from January to June 2020, Portugal has exported to Russia 223 million USA dollars, mostly in categories of equipment, 22%, and textile, 16%. Currently, Portugal is only partner number 56 in exporting goods to Russia. From the same period of time, from January to June 2020, Russia exported to Portugal 116 million USD dollars. Mostly were exported mineral products, 58%, and metals, 19%. Currently, Portugal occupies place number 80 among countries to which Russia exports. So there is a lot to be improved in terms of diversifying the bilateral balance between our two countries, Portugal and Russia. CCILR is here to assist you in relevant questions or doubts regarding business processes. So if you export or you have some logistics or customs doubts, please feel free to contact us. If you plan to export or you have doubts about certifications or obligatory requirements, feel free to ask us as well. If you plan to localize your production in a new region, we will be glad to provide information about special economic zones and benefits and different type of local support that can be provided. The CCILR is also here to promote direct business contacts among our members, among our partners, and to organize business missions and workshops and informative webinars, to which we hope you find time to participate and to learn some useful information for your specific area of business. So afterwards, please feel free to contact us via our website, russiaportugal.org, or via our general email address, mail@russiaportugal.org. So today, we are glad to welcome you to our webinar organized together with our member Finpartner company, which will share today with you the relevant inputs regarding accounting and company incorporation in Portugal. So let me announce our webinar open and pass our word to the Finpartner specialist in accounting questions, Ana Filipa Sá. Please welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. Can I just check everyone can hear me well? Yes? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Svetlana, so much for the invitation. And thank you all. So yes, just like Svetlana just mentioned, I'm going to speak to you a little bit about, setting up your activity here in Portugal and all the, the obligations, all the steps that are required and so on. So firstly, I would like to introduce you to our company, Finpartner. Finpartner was established in 2006, and we are centered in Central Lisbon, in Portugal, and we also have offices in Oporto, in the north, as well as in the Algarve. So Finpartner is a company that provides specialist service in different areas in accounting, tax, consulting, and so on. We are lucky enough to have an extensive experience with both nationally and overseas. As a matter of fact, over 80% of our clients are from abroad. Just to elaborate a little bit more on our services, it's quite a wide variety, but it includes the personal and business accounting, tax, reporting, HR and payroll, business creation, and among many others. We are also lucky enough to have the support of our business partners who provide services that complement ours in the areas of law, insurance, GDPR, and many others. So, I will go through a little bit of what the structure of the webinar on my side is like. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to explain to you some relevant information on companies, and for those of you who do not wish to set up a company and would rather work as an independent worker, I'm just going to walk you through the important steps and the requirements. And in the end, I'll just do a very brief summary on that. Okay, so on this slide, as well as in the next slide, I'm going to focus on the company section. So here, first of all, when I say company, I'm talking about your typical company that where the owner is only one owner, and it owns 100% of the share capital invested in the company. So here we've got the limited liability situation where the owner and the business are seen as two separate entities. And so from a legal perspective, if the business has any liabilities, any debts, it is not up to the owner of the company to cover them and pay for them. So in that sense, the owner's personal estate is safeguarded. Okay, so here on the right, you've got a few requirements for setting up a company here in Portugal. So firstly, there needs to be some sort of injection of capital. There is no actual minimum requirement on the amount, and if you wish to just put in as little as €1, you can do so. Secondly, there must be a Portuguese bank account associated and exclusive to the business. So this bank account can only be used for business transactions, and there cannot be any kind of personal matters, any personal expenses going through them. Also, you must appoint a certified accountant to the business. Here in Portugal, this professional is called a TOC official. Lastly, you should also bear in mind that depending on the sector of activity you are in, you might be required to have certain qualifications or licenses. So, for example, in the health sector, or whether you are providing accounting and legal services, you may be required to have, all those licenses and qualifications in order. So you should bear that in mind. Okay, so on this slide, we've got a series of steps and fiscal obligations that you must comply with when creating a company, and not just when creating, but also throughout its whole life cycle. So here, firstly, you must submit invoices. You must account for all bank movements and expenses in a proper manner, and you should really ideally run an analysis on a regular basis. You must issue tax payment slips. This is just really to communicate to the Portuguese authorities to provide information on the salaries, all the figures, and so on. You must submit VAT returns on a quarterly basis. This is along with the recapitulativas. So these recapitulativas, it kind of works the same way as an easy sales list, for those of you who know what that is, and it fits the same purpose. And it is essentially a report that outlines all the transactions, either the sales of goods or the rendering of services. between the company in Portugal and other EU state members. Then there's also a couple of models that you need to hand out. It's the RFI 21 model and the Model 30. This is for residency matters, and the Model 30 for non-resident in particular. Then you also have to produce and sign off financial statements on a regular basis. The IES report also needs to be submitted. This is an annual report, and it has to be delivered to several Portuguese agencies, and it really is more for statistical purposes. And then lastly, we've got of course, the submission and payment of IRC. The IRC is the tax liability on the company. So on the right here, we have added a couple of clarifications on this IRC charge, as well as on the Social Security contributions. So the IRC is a tax on the company's income and is a percentage based on the taxable income, excluding any deductible benefits and deductible tax. The percentage of this is 17 or 20% for small and medium-sized enterprises. Then Social Security contributions. So as an FYI, Social Security tax here in Portugal is called TSU, and the rate of this is 23.75%. And in addition to that, 11% must be paid by the company on behalf of their employees. Just in the particular case of the owner of the company not being given a fixed salary, the TSU paid in respect of the owner is in accordance with the IAS. This IAS is a social index in Portugal, and yes, so the percentage of TSU paid for the owner will be in accordance to this. Okay, so here in regards to expenses, most of the business expenses will be allowed for deduction, but in order for them to be eligible, they need to be paid through the business bank account, and they also have to have a valid supporting document attached to it. You should bear in mind that any transactions going through the company's bank account that do not have a valid backup, not only they will not be considered up for deduction, but they will also attract an added tax charge of 50%. Travel and accommodation expenses. So this is in respect of commutes, accommodation, and meals incurred by employees for business purposes. Again, these travel and accommodation expenses are fully allowable as long as they come with the right backup. And also for these ones in particular, in each of the documents or receipts, the name of the employee and the reason for the charge must be written down. Now, representation expenses. These are those expenses incurred when entertaining clients or representing the company to third parties, either in Portugal or abroad. Again, these representation expenses have an added tax of 10%. Okay, now I will go through the different steps for setting up a company here in Portugal. So firstly, you need to register the company at the Conservatório do Registro Comercial. This is the trade register agency here in Portugal. And this is when you provide all the company details, such as the name, the registered address, the bank accounts, and here you are also given the tax registration number for the company. Then you need to declare the start of business activity. This declaration of status has to be done no later than 15 days from when the company was first registered at the conservatory. And this declaration can be done online by either the owner of the company or the certified accountant, which would have been previously appointed to the business. I've also added here a couple of documents that must be submitted in order to declare the status of activity. So we've got the certificate of permanent status. You also have to have a Portuguese bank account details. You must complete and hand out the form of declaration of commencement of activity. And lastly, the passport, some sort of identification document from the owner of the company and the certified accountant. Also, once all of these documents are delivered, you will be getting a validation code from the Portuguese tax authority to the company's registered address. So now, before I move on, I would like to underline the importance of being fully aware of all these requisites and obligations of owning a company here in Portugal. And by this, I mean not just the general requirements, but also any particular obligations of the sector of your activity. So now, as for the third and also final step, you need to register the company before the Social Security authorities in Portugal. This must be done within the 10 days following the step 2, which is the declaration of start of activity. I've also added here the list of documentation that you need in order to do this. So you have got to deliver the declaration of start of activity, the status certificate of permanency, and the passports of both the owner of the company and the certified accountant. So just to remind you that these 3 documents I just listed are the same ones you needed in step 2. And then in addition to these, you also have to hand out the RV 1006 model, and then at a later date, the RV 1009 forms. And this is along with the employment contracts of each of the company's employees, and it really is just to communicate the salaries to the government. Okay, so now we've got here advantages and disadvantages of having a company. So just as I mentioned earlier, the owner of the business is not personally liable for the company's liabilities. So the personal state of the owner is protected, and should the company incur any losses or have any debts, it really is not up to the owner to cover for those. Also, there is no minimum requirement in the amount of the injected capital into the company. So I guess you don't have to necessarily put a lot of money into it to get started. All expenses are deductible from taxable income, and again, of course, as long as they have got that valid supporting document to account for it. There's also the potential for VAT deductions. Other partners may enter the business at any point in time. And lastly, the tax is calculated on the profit rather on the revenue figures. And this essentially means that the more expenses you incur, the less the tax charge you ultimately have to pay. Now, as for the disadvantages, for companies, there's a considerably higher level of bureaucracy involved when compared to that of the independent workers. There's the costs inherent to the appointment of the certified accountant, which is, again, a mandatory requisite for companies. And also, there are certain tax benefits that may be provided to other regimes that are not available to companies. Okay, so that is all as far as companies go. Now, for independent workers, this status of an independent worker is more appropriate to those individuals who provide their services freely and are not legally binded to a contract to a third party. Some of the characteristics of the independent worker is they can only provide services and they are not actually allowed to sell any goods. There's less bureaucracy and lesser requirements involved when compared to that of companies. And also there are lesser costs involved at the setup stage. Okay, so we've added here some fiscal obligations of independent workers. We do not wish to overwhelm you with too much of this because it can be quite detailed. So I'm just going to briefly mention these. So Social Security contributions, these are mandatory and must be submitted on a quarterly basis, and also their respective payment must be done in a timely manner. You may, however, be eligible for exemption for the first year of trading. Then we've got the IRS. This is the tax on the income for individuals, for independent workers. This charge is calculated it can be calculated through two different methods of accounting. So we have got the simplified accounting method. This is where the individual is taxed on 75% of revenue. You should note, however, that this 75% does not apply to all cases. Depending on the sector of activity you're in, it may differ. And then we've got the organized accounting method, where this is essentially the difference between profits and losses, the same way it happens for companies. And then on the last note, we've got the VAT. For those independent workers who are required to pay VAT, they are legally required to charge their clients, but of course then they will be allowed to deduct for this charge. You may, however, be exempted from this VAT charge should your revenue figure fall under the 12,500 euros. And this is in accordance with Article 53 of the VAT code here in Portugal. I believe Andre would like to elaborate on this a little bit more. Andre?
Hello. Hi. Please allow me to make just a brief introduction of myself in anticipation, just for you to know who's talking with you right now. So basically, I work in Caiado Guerreiro. We're a law firm based in Portugal, with an international focus and with roots in Portuguese-speaking countries. We do work very closely with Finpartner. We have a lot of clients in common, where they provide services of accountancy services and so on, and we of course provide legal advice in almost every areas of the law. We're almost 100 lawyers, so we we are able to provide assistance in every area of the law. Me myself, I work in tax law or taxation law. And so given this brief introduction, I would just like to comment on this side, just for your information, that well, in terms of IRS, the normal rates, the normal rates applicable to workers, or in this case independent workers, go as high as 48%. it's a progressive system where you are on the last bracket when you earn up to 80K a year, and from that from 80K a year onwards, you're subject to 48% on that bracket, and then the brackets go down with the amount that you receive annually. Although there are some situations where this might change, and I'll give you that information in the end when it's my proper time to talk, just to let you know in advance. And the other thing I'd just like to add regarding VAT, we have a general rate of 23%, but we do have a lot of what we call intermediate and lower rates and exemptions. So it's very complex. It applies to a multitude of situations. So it depends on your area of expertise, on your business core. You might be subject to lower rates than the 23% that I just mentioned. And then also you need to know that, and I think Filipa mentioned this, as a worker, as an independent worker, you'll have to pay 11% Social Security TSU. So this is it as regarding this information. This is what I just like to add, but I'll give the word back to you, Filipa, so you can carry on. I think you're muted.
Okay, I think we're good now. Yeah, okay, thank you so much for that, Andre. Okay, I'll just move on to the next slide then. Okay, so now I'm going to walk you through the different steps for working as an independent worker here in Portugal. I know this looks quite like a bit of an extensive list, but just bear with me. So on the left, you've got a few requirements, and this applies to all independent workers, regardless of the accounting method you have. So either, going back to my previous slide, either the simplified accounting method or the organized accounting method. So, okay, so first, all independent workers, they must declare the start of business activity. They have to hand out an identification document of the owner, of the independent worker. There also has to be some a Portuguese bank account associated to the business activity. The individual also has to register for Social Security purposes. Also, still on the subject of the Social Security, the Social Security details have to be submitted on a quarterly basis, and the respective payments must be done in a timely manner. Invoices must be issued. VAT returns also have to be submitted every quarter, along with the recapitulativos, which I explained earlier. The IRS also has to be submitted, and then there's a few models that need to be delivered. And this really is about residency matters. Okay, so now moving on to the right. Here we've got some requirements that only apply to those individuals who are under the organized accounting methods. And some of these, you will notice, are in common with that of companies. So every quarter, you must validate the business-related expenses, and this is done on an online portal created for this purpose. It's called e-Fatura. That's the Portuguese name for electronic invoices. All the expenses that go through the business bank account has to be properly accounted for. There also has to be a certified accountant appointed to the business, just similarly to your company. Yes, again, the bank account, a Portuguese bank account associated to the business, Financial statements also have to be produced and signed off. And lastly, again, the IES report has to be submitted every year. Okay, so advantages and disadvantages of opting for this independent worker status. So first of all, this process of, when compared to that of companies, is rather simple and straightforward. There is no need for an injection of capital. That's an advantage for sure. The independent worker has an absolute control over the business and how to run it. There's the possibility of choosing which accounting methods the independent worker feels it's most appropriate to his business and most beneficial as well to his or her reality. There also may be the benefit for VAT exemption if the generated revenue of the activity falls under the 12,500 euros figure. There's no need for accounting costs. This only applies for those individuals under the simplified accounting method, which is where you don't have to have a certified accountant appointed to the business. And then lastly, you may be eligible for exemption for social security contributions in the first year of trading. Now, disadvantages. There is no distinction between the individual worker and the actual business activity. So in the eyes of the law, they're one entity alone, and should the business incur any losses or have any liabilities, the individual has to unfortunately cover for all of those. So this means it may become lesser attractive for exterior sources, for third parties to decide and invest in the business, which may limit and hinder the growth of the business activity. Also, the tax liability on the individual is calculated on the revenue figure and not on the profit. So really, whether you have a big expenditure or, on the other hand, not so big, it doesn't really matter. The tax payable will still be the same in the end of the day. Okay, so I've just put here some a very brief summary of what I've just went through. So essentially, if you're looking to start a business activity here in Portugal, there's two ways to go about it in a very brief, generalized way. So firstly, you can set up a company, and we've got here the 3 steps that I've covered before. So firstly, you need to register at the Conservatoria and get the tax registration number. You then declare within 15 days from this first step, you declare the startup activity status, and then you've got 10 days till you register for social security contributions. For the independent worker, the first 3 steps are the same as for companies. However, you also need to submit a form for the particular case of independent workers. The form RB 1000-DGSS. Essentially, the company involves a considerably higher level of bureaucracy and associated costs when compared to that of independent workers. However, the advantage of this is that, again, the owner of the company is not personally liable for any losses, so he or she is more protected in that respect. And again, just to wrap up, there are really advantages and disadvantages to any of these two regimes. And so it is highly recommended for those of you wishing to start an activity in Portugal to seek advice from a professional who will be able to better understand your situation, your reality, the activity you're in, and so yeah, so they'll be able to help you and recommend you which situation suits your situation, which option suits your situation better, and which one is more beneficial to you and your business. And that is all from me, from my side. If you have any questions, you're welcome to either ask in the end of this webinar, if you could, or also I've left here my email address. So again, if you have any questions or you would like to discuss this matter a bit further with us, you are welcome to drop me a quick email. You've got my email address there. And yeah, so thank you so much for your attention and for joining us in this webinar. I would like to now give the words to Andre from Caiado. Andre?
Okay. Hello. I think we have some questions here already. We'll try to answer them at the end, at least the ones that we're able to. So basically, everything you need to know, well, on a high-end evaluation, of course, Filipa has said regarding establishing a company. Of course, there are many details that we cannot cover on a webinar. Of course, this is just to give a general perspective, and of course, as Filipa said, we are totally available to to try and help you if you so need. So regarding my side, let's say presentation, because it's not really the side of the presentation that is the core of the presentation. I'll just like to give you a brief explanation of some issues that we consider that we should tell you about, because there are important either for independent workers or for companies, especially if you're talking about inbound investment in Portugal, or we're talking about shareholders, administrators and workers of said companies. This is very important to know, and many companies, many of the people deciding usually are not aware of these programs and might miss on an opportunity. So this is just a brief explanation. So first of all, just to tell you about the special tax regime for individuals. This might be beneficial for every party that I've mentioned. Either you're an independent worker, or you are an administrator of a company, a worker of said company, or you are a shareholder wishing to establish your residency in Portugal or move your business to Portugal. This is basically a regime that allows you to have a tax holiday for the period of 10 years. So we have two main issues, two main lines regarding this regime. One has to do with passive income. So the majority of foreign passive income will be tax exempt in Portugal if you're under this regime. And the other is for professions that are qualified as high added value activities that we have to do to work out on a day-to-day, on a case-by-case situation that will benefit from the 20% flat tax rate. The reason we're telling you this is because we don't want you to get we don't want to scare you when we mention that the general tax rates go up to 48%, and then you don't decide. Then you cross Portugal as a possible country for investing. We don't want that. So this goes hand to hand with the information that we've said. So basically that's it. It's a very easy to obtain status. You just don't have to. You cannot have been a tax resident in Portugal for the past 5 years. That's the only thing that you need to take into consideration. So this is not applicable to Portuguese residents or people that are already Portuguese tax residents. So basically, in a very short presentation, this is the main framework of this regime that might be very interesting in terms of changing your address here or employing workers in Portugal, either moving from abroad or in Portugal, or if you are established in Portugal already. This is just a summary of what I just said. There's no need to go into this. The other aspect that I wanted to briefly mention, and because we're talking about and we're doing this with the Russian perspective, since Russian is not part of the EU, we also need to take into account or consider the visa side of moving to Portugal, because if you're not from the EU country, you will need a visa, and there are some visas connected with the business activities, and this might be interesting for you to be aware of, and might be also a key factor if you decide to move your business to Portugal or decide to invest in Portugal, or even if you already do those things, be aware of this information. The Golden Visa program is the most well-known program. Is a investment-based program in which you might be able to obtain your citizenship in the future by either real estate acquisition or capital transfer, or you might also invest in a fund. If you need to know more about these issues, or if you're interested in knowing more about these issues, please feel free to contact me, because I can send you more information about it. Then we have a startup visa. This is basically used for non-EU startup founders. If they want to be part of the community and they want to start up a company in Portugal, this facilitates the obtaining the residency in Portugal. Basically, you will need to have a connection to an incubator entity. This is something that we're used to work with, and we can help you with this. That might also be interesting for you if you want to establish a startup or establish a company in Portugal, and also for the workers. You can be an entrepreneur who want to develop a new project, or you can also have your project already implemented, and if so, you're also able to apply for this visa, given that some requirements are met, of course. Then I'll put you some of the requirements here. I don't want to get too much into a very detailed explanation about this, but there are some requirements to create jobs, to execute the functions in Portugal, etc. Okay, next we have what we call a tech visa. It's basically a company certification program to grant the residency right if you are, for example, a Russian national, and you are willing to develop a highly qualified activity in Portugal. This is very useful, especially for independent workers. So basically, here we need to see if the activity that you wish to pursue in Portugal might be able to benefit from this program. If so, we can accompany you in all the procedure and until the end, until you have your residency permit established. I'll give you some requirements here. You can see them on the slides after. I don't think it's appropriate for me to go into a very detailed information about this. The process, it's quite simple. It's simple if you know what you are doing. If you're working with someone that is used to do this kind of process, it's simple. If you sometimes try to do it on your own, it might get a bit tricky because you need to contact the consulate or the embassy in a country of origin. If you are in Russia, then you need to do this with the Russian embassy or consulate. And then you need to prove that you are able to sustain yourself. This has to do with, you have to at least earn 15,000 a year, if my memory is not, if I'm not mistaken. And then you need to prove that the applicant is retired and the amount of retirement is enough to live in Portugal. If you are retired, if you're not working, if you don't have an income, you need to at least prove that you are able to provide or to live with the retirement that you have, or something like that. Then the procedure is done with the borders and foreign and border services in Portugal. We call it CEF. After that, all the procedure is done in Portugal, and you will only need to be in Portugal for it once when you have to make an appointment in CEF. So our presentation that we're dealing with here, which is the company incorporation. But I don't think that one thing can go without the other, and especially if we're talking about inbound investment or foreigners, it's also very important for you to be aware of the tax regimes and visa options that Portugal has to offer. That might be the key factor in deciding to move or not to Portugal. This is it for me, but I'm totally open to answer any questions that you have. Filipa, I don't know if, do you want to look at the questions here?
Yeah, there was one question right in the beginning regarding the simplified accounting method. So the question was whether that method could be applied to companies, and I'm afraid it cannot. That simplified accounting method and also the organized accounting method, those limited to independent workers. So only independent workers have that option between the two, that option to choose between the option that suits their reality more and that's more beneficial to them. So yeah, so basically the answer to that question is yes, companies cannot be under that regime of a simplified method.
Also, there's a question, sorry, regarding independent workers. Nicholas also asks if you're an independent worker from abroad, that if you need a bank account. Well, it's not legally required if you're just an independent worker working in Portugal. It might facilitate on the business side of it, but you're not legally required to have a Portuguese bank account. DGRSP. It would be interesting to see the website. Yes, of course. This almost all of the procedures that we mention here, apart from the immigration procedures, of course, might be done online. Unfortunately, we don't have the time in a webinar to go through all the steps for all the possibilities that we have mentioned. But as Filipa said, we are totally available to help you navigate either the tax authority's website or the Social Security website in order for you to obtain what you intend. Okay, there's Does the Golden Visa allow for an investor from US or Russia to obtain the EU citizenship by investing into a Portuguese company? So, for example, if we attract a new shareholder who injects 1 million into our company, will he obtain this visa? Okay, thank you, Nicholas, for the question. Well, it depends on the kind of company and if he has a connection or not with the company. But please feel free to email me. I think I have my I don't have my email here. Sorry, my mistake. I'll just put my email here. If you can. If you can email me that question, I might be able to help you with our immigration department, because that's a very that I know it depends on the type of company and the type of investment, and if the connection between the shareholder and the company, but that might be more suitable for our immigration or my immigration colleagues to give you an answer. Yes, nowadays it's, I don't know, Filipa, if you want to add anything to what I've just said.
No, yeah, thank you for that note.
FSOE are the golden visa in real estate with restrictions in Lisbon and Porto areas. In the future, there are some plans to limitate the investment in Lisbon and Porto, and it's very likely that it's highly likely that the restrictions in Lisbon and Porto will come, although you'll still might be able to attract or to invest in real estate in other sides of the country, but you're still on time to buy apartments in Lisbon and Porto. It's okay. We're already client with Caiado. Okay, I will contact my lawyer there. I didn't know that. No problem, Nicholas. If you're still, if you need anything from my side, just feel free to email me. No problem.
Okay, so I don't know whether you have any more questions, but again, if you haven't got any at the moment and you just think about something later, just make sure to drop us an email. I believe this presentation will be sent to you afterwards. So yeah, so you'll have all our details there, and yeah, I would just like to thank you again to Andre and Svetlana for this, as well as all the attendees. I don't know whether you guys would like to add anything else.
Well, I would like to thank you as well, Filipa and Svetlana, for the invitation. I hope.
Yeah, surely. So same from our side. So first of all, as the member of CCIL, we want to thank the Finpartner, the initiative, because some of the permanent questions are important and others are all the time changing. So the people who live abroad sometimes think that they know already some general rules, but then there are always so many updates and new inputs from the point of view of the procedures that it's of course crucial to be updated. And so in this case, of course, Finpartner and Caiado would be willing to help. So thank you, and Filipa and Andre, for being with us today. And of course, the participants feel free to go to CCILR website. So we would also share this presentation with open access. And once more, thank you for participation and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Svetlana.
So it was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
And thank you all the attendees. Thank you.